I'm Maria. I'm here with Paulie Zink, Monkey Kung Fu master, the founder of Yin Yoga, and three-time international martial arts grand champion. So Paulie, what came first for you, Yin Yoga or Kung Fu?
Well, neither one actually. I started out doing Hatha yoga. At age 14, I got interested in yoga and started with that. Afterwards, I started to do Kung Fu at local schools around the area. I grew up in Hollywood. And from that, I started to learn my own sort of thing from there. And eventually I went into doing the Yin Yoga when I met a Chinese master who started to teach me martial arts and Qigong. And he taught me animal postures, healing arts called Daoist. And from that, I started to go out and study animals on my own, and insects and the elements of nature, the 5 transforming energies of which we're all made of.
What are those energies?
Those energies are earth, metal, water, wood, and fire. And those energies are contained within us, but all around us in nature. And so it's an inseparability. And from what he taught me with that, I started to develop my own forms of Qigong and postures based on animals. And that's how Yin Yoga developed originally. It was intended so that you could restore your natural flexibility and move in your natural state as all the animals do.
So his art that he taught you was from the Daoist tradition, right?
From the Daoist tradition.
Both the Kung Fu and the yoga?
Yes.
Were you always flexible?
I was just average flexibility as a teenager. Mm-hmm. And when I started the Hatha Yoga at 14, I started to grow flexibility more and more and more, gradually. But it wasn't until I met my teacher in my 20s when I really started to grow. As he taught me the philosophy and the elements of nature with the animals, invoking that primal energy helps you really grow. And as you start to grow, then you start to flow. So as you flow naturally, that's the way you were as a child, which you never should have lost it in the first place. So as a child, we're very fluid and flexible, and then just at a very short time before teens, you stiffen up. You see children getting tighter. And the reason is the way you're living in harmony with the Tao, and also doing the postures based on what the animals do every day. We're a monkey, actually. Our body's a monkey's body. So if we did the things they do every single day, we would be flexible till we die of old age.
Well, let's go back to your original training with your master. What did that consist of? How often did you practice with him, and were you in a class? Or
every day I was with him for hours and hours in the evening, and it was based on doing Qigong exercises, breathing, flexibility, some meditations, and then from that he started to teach me martial arts forms. And from that, the same night, it would be martial arts forms, and then after that, it would be weapons. So we'd work about 6 to 8 hours every night.
And where did you practice at?
In my backyard in Hollywood. And he always used to say to me, "Take your time, we have all night." And he meant it, too.
So you practiced on the ground, or?
On the cement backyard where a carport was. It was a cement slab.
So you did yoga on cement?
On a cement slab.
That's pretty tough. Will flexibility take away from strength or make someone more injury prone?
It makes people less injury prone because when you do nothing but strength training, you get tighter and tighter. So then if you try to do something with flexibility, you pull a muscle. So when you're more fluid and flexible, then in conjunction with strength, that makes you balanced better. So yin and yang ideally should be a balance of strength and flexibility both equally. So too much yin is bad, because then a person's so flexible and soft they don't have muscle tone, and without muscle tone then you can't move. To move naturally like an animal does, you need strength and flexibility both.
Well, can a person be too flexible?
There's no such thing as too flexible as long as you're balanced with strength and fluidity. One of the myths of hypermobility is that people hurt themselves where they're too flexible. But if you're developed from a master teaching you how to grow and be flexible and strong at the same time, then that doesn't apply. But there's all kinds of theories about being too flexible out there. Mostly they're by people who aren't very flexible themselves that make up the theories.
What about the theory that some people genetically are limited by developing their musculature, or their bones will not allow them to develop flexibility?
That's just a theory that somebody made up. And the masters, the way I teach it, is the way the old Daoists seen all their students in unlimited in potential. So everyone has the unlimited potential as long as their mind is open to it. But when a teacher says you're never going to do this because you're not Chinese, or you're never going to do this posture because your body won't let you do it, the person automatically is defeated at that point. But if your mind is powerful enough to allow you to grow into the postures with patience, you can do it, because yoga is 90% mind. Your mind is right there, and I've taught many students over the years, thousands of them, and they were told by teachers that you could never do this, so don't even bother trying. And when I say to them, I'll show you how to do it, and I show them how it's done, then they can do it. And they can do it if they believe they can do it, and if the teacher's willing to show them how to do it.
What does it take to develop that kind of flexibility? What's the proper way to develop flexibility?
Patience without force, and a teacher that really believes in what you're doing. Because if you think your students are never going to do it, that will affect them too. Your mind affects the student's performance, just as their mind affects their performance. So when a student says to me, I could never do what you're doing, or I'll be in the hospital for 6 months, that student's already never going to try to do anything. They're just going to go back and sit on their couch. So it's the student's mind and it's the teacher's mind that's very important. You have a big effect on your students the way you perceive them and what they're doing. And if you see them and watch them growing with patience, and you really can put that energy into them by thinking about it, they will grow. Unless they're the student who says, I could never do that. Once they say that, they automatically prevent themselves from even trying.
What's your opinion of what's the popularized way of teaching Yin Yoga and other kind of yoga, with an emphasis on studying anatomy or meridians or theories about how a posture should be done or limitations?
That's a lot of theory that isn't my theory. And my theory is that if you do the art, you shouldn't be thinking at all. You should be doing it by seeing it done and doing it. But if you're thinking about something as you're doing the art, what happens is you're really outside of your feeling of what you're doing. If you're in your head, you're not in your body, and you're not feeling what you're doing, so you're not getting your energy to flow properly. So that stifles the flow of energy. The most important thing I teach students and teachers is that you can know the theory and not be able to do anything with the theory, but you can be a master of the art and not know the theory. So if you look at a monkey that is a master of the movement and flow, they don't know anything about the theory in books or anatomy, and yet they're the masters. So to me, what matters more is the students. The proof is in the pudding.
Do you have any thoughts on the current emphasis in the fitness world on mobility and programs that are developed for teaching people how to be mobile?
Well, anything people like to do that helps them keep their joints mobile and their body mobile is important. It could be any type of yoga or any type of exercise that's good for you that you're enjoying doing. As long as you really have fun with it and like it, then it's good for you to have any kind of mobility. So strength work, flexibility work, dancing, running, anything that you love to do that keeps you mobile is good.
What distinguishes Yin Yoga from other types of yoga?
Yin Yoga is something that I developed from the Daoist philosophies and art of to me it's been my art form, and so it's a form of art that uses your expression from your intuitive heart to come out with flows of movement based on animals, elements, and it's all based on the Chinese Daoist philosophy. Versus when I started yoga, it was all based on East Indian philosophy, which is Buddhism, Hinduism.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different way of viewing the world, different way of seeing the elements and animals. And it emphasizes the use of Qigong. So when you study Yin Yoga, you're learning Qigong as well as how to move naturally again as you did as a child. And in addition to that, you're strength building. So you're doing postures that use a lot of strength. So it's not just sitting around like the first level of Yin Yoga. A lot of people is familiar with seeing people just sitting there where people use a timer and say, change to the next side, everybody. That's just the very first beginner's level of Yin Yoga, which I only taught people that really had a hard time beginning yoga.
What's the connection between the style of Kung Fu you studied in Yin Yoga?
The style of Kung Fu is based on the animals and elements also, but a lot of it was based on the monkey. And the monkey is the closest form of movement that we have because we are a monkey's body. So using the monkey as the body type for movement, that's what we are. We're just monkeys. Whereas some Kung Fu styles will use, like, say, tigers, dragons, bats, different kinds of different animals, and insects too, like praying mantis. But our body isn't really the same as the other animals like that. So we can still do things, but you really are the closest that we are as a primate. So our bodies are that of a primate. So some of my students were gorillas, I said, because they're so big and strong. And others are more monkeys. But we're just still a primate body. No matter which one of the monkeys you look at, you'll see yourself in that.
Can you discuss Qigong, define what Qigong is actually?
Qigong is a form of breathing exercise, your life force. It means working your life force. So when you're doing Qigong, what you're doing is trying to increase your energetics of the body, it's an unseen force that we all have, and that's what allows us to live. So our Qi is the electrical energy. You can look at it like electricity in the body or your magnetism. Your Qi allows you to live. As soon as your Qi is gone, then you die. So Qi is the electrical energy and your magnetism, your magnetic energy. So when electricity's flowing through the body, you have a magnetic field around that energy flow. And your energy is increased by breathing exercises and flexibility exercises, because the flexibility allows your blood to circulate better and your Qi to flow better. When you stretch and grow looser, your meridians open up if there's any blockages. All the joints in your body prevent the flow of Qi when they get tight or they get full of arthritis, then your Qi is reduced. So by opening all the joints in the body, cleaning them out, it's called cleaning the joints, and growing flexible the way an animal is naturally. They have much more chi and energy than we have. And that's because they're always very fluid. It's only when they get very old and start to tighten up, all their chi is going down.
So fluidity is really important to your art?
Fluidity is very important to the art because as you grow, you will flow. And as you flow, that's your natural state. We are a bag of water. We're naturally a bag of water. So if you ever looked at animals, how fluid they are, like when a deer will walk up to a fence and jump 6 feet over with like a spring. That's called the wood energy of your body. So that's using one of the elements. Water giving birth to wood, as an example, in the Daoist philosophy means that when you're as soft as a bag of water, you can then become like wood and expand and spring out. The way you take a bullfrog and set him down, he's so relaxed, when you touch his tail, he jumps and moves forward.
So there's a lot of movement in your yoga? It's not just static postures?
It's a lot of movement, not just static postures.
How would you define genuine Yin Yoga?
Genuine Yin Yoga would encompass the energies of the elements and the animals. So it's based on the 5 energies, the 5 transforming energies, and then the animal postures. So when you are showing a student, say, the dragon posture or the cross-legged frog posture, you would embody that energy so that people can see, oh, there's a frog. Versus somebody else saying, here, get into this posture and just hold it while I time you. And the people have no energy. So Yin Yoga was never meant to be dead yoga. It was meant to be a live, powerful form of yoga. And it's not a scientific endeavor. It's meant to be an art form, which means each student will have their own individual self-expression of each posture. So when I show you one posture, there's many ways of doing that one posture. It's not wrong if it's this way. It's not right if it's this way. I always say if you're doing the art the way I'm doing the art, then you're doing it wrong. Because the way you want to do it is so that it's your own art form as you're doing a posture. It's the same as teaching somebody music, all the notes you learn, and then I say put together a song and play it. And somebody will be expressing themselves completely different than the next student here. And that's the art of it. That means that you're not saying if it's exactly like my teacher's, it's right, because that's his art. But when you do this art, I've taught you the fundamental basics of it, but you have to be able to express yourself in your own natural way, because everybody's got a different ability of flexibility, stiffness, strength. So the way one person looks doing, say, the same posture, they should all look different, everybody.
What's a Yin Yoga class like?
It's a class of yoga based on animals and elements. So it's using the animals and the elements combined.
Well, okay, how would your class, how does your classes look, or the content differ from a commercial kind of Yin Yoga class?
Usually commercially they'll teach people 10 or 15 postures in a class. In my class you'll do about 24 different things, and you'll move around a lot more with it. Mm-hmm. You won't be sitting there with a timer. I never use a timer. Mm-hmm. So I tell people we're going to hold these for a minute or two on each side, and that's approximately, and then when I go into some other postures, I might just go right through postures with a flow. There's going to be a flow of movement where you're not holding a posture, and then some things you're going to be standing up, doing balances. You're going to be standing, balancing, doing things like the T-Rex, the seahorse, the pterodactyl postures. They're all based on animals and elements.
So it involves the whole body.
Whole body. It's a lot of times there's a misconception about Yin Yoga being for the lower body only, like the mm-hmm. hips and the legs and the ankles. But mm-hmm. when I teach, it's upper body, shoulders, back, neck, everything, the whole body, fingers, Everything is used in a class. So by the time you've done a 1 hour class, it's the total body. It's your wrists, your elbows, your fingers, everything is in use. So postures based on the horse, the frog, the crab, all kinds of postures that use your fingers, lizard, all the different postures are based on something that will keep your joints fluid so you never get arthritis. And when you get arthritis, then your chi is all slowed down there.
Can you talk about the importance of ankle flexibility in doing low moving postures?
Ankle flexibility is very important when you want to move naturally, because since we're a monkey's body, if you've ever seen a monkey moving naturally, they can sit and bend their ankles a lot. So monkeys do a lot of squatting and sitting and bending and moving close to the ground. So it's very important that your ankles, your knees, your hips, all that loosen up. And that's lower body work there. But then, when you've seen monkeys, they also jump and hang from trees and climb and stretch and do things. So the whole body is in use with a monkey too. It's not just the lower part of the body.
Mm-hmm. Is Yin Yoga for everyone, or is it a specific type of yoga only for certain people?
It's for everybody. When I developed it, I wanted it to be universal for everybody. And I originally started teaching muscle builders that were all muscle-bound, really, really heavy-duty competitive bodybuilders. And the reason I developed the Yin Yoga originally was because they couldn't do the first level 1 of the Hatha Yoga that I was going to teach them. They were like a -10 on the scale. So I would say, okay, let's try this, and then I would start having them hold the postures for very long, like 4 or 5 minutes per posture. And that was because they were unable to even get to the beginning stages of the Hatha. And so then I would start teaching them the animals and the elements that I use for myself in my Qigong and my martial arts. And so from that, that's where I started to develop the Yin Yoga, using only the Chinese philosophy behind it. I would still teach people, like today in my Yin Yoga, I'll still teach them the downward dog, the upward dog, things that I learned in Hatha Yoga, but it's going to be done with a different emphasis on energy. So it won't look exactly the same as when it was done in the Hatha style. But I still will teach downward, upward dog, the plow, all the postures that everybody's familiar with, the lotus. But when I do them with the Chinese philosophy and energy of flow behind it.
And Hatha, I'm sorry.
The way I come in and out of them will be a little differently.
In Hatha Yoga, they emphasize moving the life force up and down the spine?
Yes, up and down the spine. And in Chinese yoga, it's based on up and down the spine plus out each arm and out each foot into the earth. So the 5 directions, they call it. So it's the spine, and then it's your arms and your legs.
So your life force extends beyond your body?
Yes, and connects with the earth or wherever you're reaching for.
What's the current state of Yin Yoga in this country, as far as how it's being taught and, you know, its popularity?
It's become very popular, but what's been popularized is the very fundamental, basic, first level beginning stage of it. And a lot of what's really sad is a lot of people think that's all there is to Yin Yoga. So they go to class and learn maybe 15, 20 postures, and then they say this is all there is to it. But that was like just the starting point. And I teach over 100 postures in a workshop, say. Over the years, I always evolve and keep growing. So to me, art is alive, and if something's static and dead, then it's dead yoga. So it was meant to be a living art form for each student.
It's being taught now in many countries around the world.
All over the world now.
But it's still mostly this popularized beginner level.
Yeah, it's the fundamental beginning level for people that I couldn't get to do any really basic hatha yoga at the time, so now it's become more popular, yin yoga.
Mm-hmm.
But when I teach workshops, I teach a lot differently than they're used to. I give them the animals, the elements, and a lot of the flows come into it there. Movements involved with it.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't sitting there with a timer.
How can someone find a qualified yin yoga instructor?
The YinYogaInstitute.com or PaulieZink.com would have a list of teachers that I've certified over the years.
Mm-hmm.